Please help me welcome Ray Anthony.
Thank you. Researcher and professor and an understudy of Rick Smalley, who's the expert in nanotechnology. He has one of the best quotes that I really love. And his quote is this: "I've always been hurt by thinking small, but I've never been hurt by thinking big." And I'm going to give you some examples of people and companies who have thought big and gained big. And in my book, I talk about all these very, very vibrant statistics about, how many people are unemployed, how many people are on food stamps. But somebody came up with a kind of a statistic the other day that really summed it all up. How bad is the economy? It is so bad, ExxonMobil had to let go of 25 congressmen. Now, I know somebody is going to get back at me with that. Right, Alan? He's not going to buy my book, no doubt. When people think of innovation, they normally think of technology. There's nothing wrong with that. Some of our biggest innovations around technology. But if you take a look at Apple, Apple aces innovation in every aspect, not just technology, but they get involved in business models, innovative business models, strategies, tactics, processes, operations, and so forth. I remember back in '83 when President Reagan talked about the fact that if you stacked $1,000 bills flat on top of each other, not vertical, flat, each $1,000 bill is 0.0043 inches thick. He said it would reach 60 miles. Do you know what the debt is now? Over 950 miles. 950 miles. That's not even our legacy debt when we take a look at Social Security or we take a look at government pensions or military pensions. Yes, we are innovating in this country. Not as much as we should. So I'm advocating massive, accelerated innovation across the board. We have 499 billion barrels of oil waiting to be extracted. And what they do with enhanced oil recovery is it's a technique where they take carbon dioxide and they pump it into the ground. And what it does is it increases the volume of the remaining oil there, makes it thinner, makes it easier to come up. So we could extract that oil, not all of it, because it would be, again, prohibitively expensive, but we can extract about 30 to 70% of the remaining oil right here in America economically. The innovator, he says, I'll bet I can find a better way to do it. And so what he did was he invented the head blade. He came up with this idea of putting two wheels on the back of a razor blade. It's like a handle, and he literally shaves it around his head. And he built a $20 million business out of an idea. Out of an idea. Listen to this. If it could have been done and it should have been done, it would have been done. How often do we ask that of ourselves? She said, who am I to come up with this idea? All these major stroller makers in the world, if it made sense, they would have done it. Believe it or not, it took them a couple of tens of thousands of hours to engineer this magnificently ingenious lock called the ultimate lock. And it's so ingenious because it takes 4,000 pounds of pressure to break it, where a typical deadbolt will go down in 1/10 the pressure, or 400 pounds. It's so strong that if a group of SWAT people came to your home with a 30-pound battering ram, there is no way they could break through this deadbolt. And so it took all this innovation to create a simple device that's attractive, ingenious, strong, reliable, commodity that's thousands of years old. Commodity that everybody uses. Go in a hardware store, you buy it. It's called nails, thousands of years old. Typical home holds about 8,000 nails. And so what do construction people do? They go to the hardware store and they buy any old nails because nails are nails, right? They're commodity. They're like salt, they're like soap, they're like, it's a commodity. So Ed Sutt was called Mr. Nail, and he worked for Bostitch Corporation, which was a subsidiary of Stanley. And he was tasked with the idea of finding out what happened to these homes in the Caribbean a couple of years ago when Hurricane Marilyn when the 95-mile-per-hour winds destroyed 80% of the homes there. 80% of the homes. Well, what he found out was that it wasn't the wood that broke, it was the nail, and it broke in 3 different ways. Sometimes the wood would pop through and just take the whole nail out. Other times, a piece of wood would pop through the top of the nail, and part of the nail would be remaining in the wood. The third way was the shank of the nail would break. And so he came up, it took him 5 years of research and development to come up with the hurricane nail. On the bottom, he had these little barbs. On the top, he increased the head by about 25%. On the top, he had a little bit of fluting so that the nail wouldn't pull away from the 2 pieces of wood. He had a special carbon alloy to the nail that made it very strong, but yet pliable. Took him thousands of prototypes. Now, what do people get out of it? Well, since 2004, hurricanes and earthquakes have taken a toll on Americans. We're only talking about Americans right now, to the tune of about $170 billion with hundreds of lives lost. And here's the beauty of the snail. You ready for this? This old commodity that was thousands and thousands and thousands of years old was brought into the 21st century. It operates in a regular nail gun. It could double the home to resistance of hurricane winds. So if a nail would start to break at 80 or 90 or 95 miles per hour, this home, depending upon its design, could withstand gale forces exceeding 170 miles per hour. It would increase the ability of the home to withstand an earthquake by 50%. It was absolutely amazing. But here's the amazing part. You know how much it adds to the cost of a home? $30. Who in their right mind wouldn't build their home with hurricane nails? All of a sudden, I had a eureka moment. And years ago, I was thinking, I used to love Cracker Jacks when I was a kid. And how many of you remember Cracker Jacks? Can I see a show of hands? Okay. Wow, a lot of folks. I thought I was dating myself by that, by the way. Cracker Jacks, remember what the slogan was on the Cracker Jack box? A surprise inside every box. And they would have these little toy trinkets made out of plastic, which, by the way, at that time were made in the United States. Okay? A toy in every box, a surprise in every box. I wrote this book, took me 152 iterations over 3 years to try to have a surprise on every page.